I mean, here's how life-threatening this post-ICU syndrome can be. And when I say post-ICU syndrome, I mean the physical, cognitive, and or psychological impairments
Mm-hmm.
that survivors suffer long after the ICU. So it
Yeah.
could be one or all three.
Mm-hmm.
I was a nurse practitioner back in my home ICU, and we received a patient that was there for an attempted suicide, and it was not her first. Fortunately, it failed, and I was able to sit down and talk with her, and she said, "I just don't know why I'm like this anymore." I said, "Well, tell me about what changes you've experienced or what you're struggling with." And essentially, she described that she had had a lot of trauma in her earlier years.
Mm-hmm.
She'd survived a hurricane, kidnapping, just crazy things. But she had learned coping mechanisms to deal with that trauma throughout her life. And so she worked as a school teacher, lived independently, was totally fine. But she would have some pseudo seizures, which is probably rooted in that PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, she was really very functional and independent. Then she moved up to the States and was living with her son. She had one of the pseudo seizures on a train,
Mm-hmm.
and they called the EMS. They took her to the hospital, and they really thought she was having real seizures. And so they intubated her on a ventilator, put her into
Mm-hmm.
medically induced coma. And I'm sure very quickly, once they read her brain activity and realized that wasn't real seizure activity, they probably tried to take sedation off. But what happens when people have delirium is you turn sedation off and they come out crazy. They're
Mm-hmm.
thrashing, they're trying to pull the tube out, they're trying to punch people. So right now, the reflex that nurses have is to resume that sedation, to turn it back on, to control the patient. So instead of being off the ventilator right away, she remained in that coma for weeks,
Oh, wow.
even though it was probably never real seizure activity, right? And so she lost the ability to walk, to sit, to stand, to swallow. So she had to go to rehab and relearn all of that. She said that was really difficult. But the worst part was during that medically induced coma, she graphically and vividly relived her life's worst trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So now that trauma is very fresh, right in the front of her mind. Now
Mm-hmm.
she's got all these physical impairments to battle and deal with. And then she said her brain was never the same. She couldn't even read a calendar or a clock.
Wow.
And so now she can't use her coping mechanisms to deal with the trauma that she's swimming in from even her past and now her recent medical stays.
Right.
And now she's like totally dependent on her son. So she
Yeah.
can't deal with the trauma. Now realizes she's can't work, she can't function, and she didn't want to rely on her son for every little thing. So she decided it wasn't worth living. And I
Mm.
said, "You had delirium and you have post-ICU syndrome." And she said, "I've never heard of that before." And it
Mm.
had been like 2 years since she'd come out of the ICU. And this is
Yeah.
like her third or fourth attempted take on her life. And
Wow.
no one had told her or could explain to her why she was struggling with this and that
Yeah.
she wasn't alone. But that's how impactful this is.
Well, and I also feel like what you just shared is like the power of having a name for what you're struggling with. And it may not sound like a lot to somebody, but when you have seen the impact it has when somebody gets a name for the struggles like PICS or medical trauma, it can shift everything. And it can go from there's something horribly wrong with me, I'm the only person going through this, to, oh, this is a thing and there is help. And
Mhm.
so then you can go and get the help that you need, but oftentimes you need a name for it. And a lot of people, like you said, when you shared about your friend as the attorney, they don't want to tell anybody what they're going through. They think they're the only person going through it.
And
And
it's
so like,
insane. And sometimes they're
yeah,
embarrassed. Like the things that they went through in their mind are
yeah,
so graphic and morbid, it's almost
yeah,
unspeakable.
yes,
So they don't they don't want to tell other people about it because it was like, how could this even cross your mind? What kind of like sick mind do you have to imagine
right,
those things? But
yeah,
it's because they're going through so much pain and suffering in the ICU because of the critical illness. Their brain was just trying to make sense of it. Um,
right.
but they don't know how to talk about that to like us.
Yeah.